I'd like to open the meeting for the Santa Barbara Unified School District's Board of Education for June 14, 2016. Mr. Torino, would you like to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Yes. Please stand. Salute. Pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And so that members of the public understand that one of our board members is currently in Hawaii, but she's joining us remotely, and that's her on the dais through a computer. She could see us. She may be able to see you a little bit.
In order to provide language access, we have Spanish interpretation available. Para proporcionar acceso lingüístico, tenemos interpretación al español disponible. Por si alguien gusta escuchar la reunión en español, puede tomar unos audífonos. Gracias.
We also have headsets for the hearing impaired that are available. Please indicate if you need a headset. Thank you. I'm going to change the order a little bit here on this agenda because we have a couple of items that I want to take before we move on to item 6A. So, and actually item 5 as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to take items 6B and 6C first, and then we're going to come back to item 5, and then item 6A after item 5, if that makes any sense. So first on our agenda is recognition of 2016 California State Science Fair Award winners.
Okay.
Okay.
So tonight we would like to recognize the outstanding scholarly work of several students who placed in the California State Science Fair. Students, please come up to the front to accept your certificate and remain standing as we celebrate your success. In third place for the junior division, alternative energy category, Josh Benson, grade 8. Josh's project was increasing the useful lifetime of solar panels. He attended Lockland Junior High, and his advisor was Ryan Mead. Honorable mention, junior division, alternative energy category, Christopher Rodriguez, grade 7. Christopher's project was, what's the coolest turf? He attends La Colina, and his advisor was Jose Malgoza. Are they coming up? They're not here? Okay. Third place, senior division, environmental engineering category, Amanda Roberts, grade 10. Amanda's project was, is it possible to turn CO2 waste into a usable product? She attends San Marcos High School, and her advisor was Dr. Raul Sengadar. First place in junior division, cognitive science category, Ria Comarel, grade 8. Ria's project was focus the effect of media multitasking on memory. She attended La Colina, and her advisor was David Marchetti. Is Ria here? Okay. Honorable mention, junior division, cognitive science category, Chris Boris, grade 8. Chris's project was synesthesia and creativity. Chris attended Goleta Valley Junior High, and her advisor was Kim Miller. The honorable mention, junior division, microbiology category, Zoe Geller, grade 8. Zoe's project was the effects of ultrasound on magnetic bacteria for a cancer therapy. Zoe attended Goleta Valley Junior High, and her advisor was Kim Miller. And we do have another student who was planning to be here a little bit later, and so we'll announce her when she arrives, or about 7:50. Is she here?
Oh, she is here. She's here.
Oh, Rebecca? Great. So first place, junior division, mammalian biology category, Rebecca McKinney, grade 8. Rebecca's project was how a prosthetic moves. She attended Goleta Valley Junior High, and her advisor was Kim Miller. So a big congratulations to the students as well as the teachers and parents who supported them as they conducted those stellar examples of academic inquiry. Thank you very much, students. And we have the recognition of Monroe Elementary School's Latino Family Literacy Project. Monroe Elementary School Principal Brian Naughton is here to present certificates of achievement to participants in Monroe's Family Literacy Project. Mr. Naughton.
Thank you. Good evening and aloha, everybody. I'm actually going to turn the microphone over to Miss Janina first.
Good evening, everyone. So happy to be here. First of all, I want to say thank you to Dr. Jacqueline Mora for talking to me about this project, first of all, and then Helen Rodriguez for saying, go ahead and do it. The Latino Family Literacy Project was a project to teach our parents the connection between reading and succeeding in school and having reading habits and how that helps make connections with the family. We had so many parents that would come and they committed 10 weeks of these classes and they were so excited every day. They talked about how much they learned and how closer their family was getting every day and excited to be reading a book. And the books were fully bilingual and we were just so excited. When I first found out about the program, I started jumping. I was so excited to be part of it, so I just want to say thank you. And now we're going to have Judy Casio. She's going to tell us a little bit of the curriculum.
She explained overall most of it, but it is, as she said, bilingual books that had that allowed them to take one home, borrow it, take it home and share it with their children, and create a communication, a connection with their children, and a reading routine to help throughout their future years of education. So they used guided questions to help develop the English and Spanish vocabulary, and the books have a high interest value with the vocabulary page in the back in both Spanish and English. And additionally, there's an ESL packet that was given to the parents so they could take home and do at home for the week. And the parents also make a family album. And in that family album, they would add pages each week of photos of their children with words to describe them, a family tree, writing letters to a family member and to their children, and sharing their family traditions and values. And so overall, we feel like it's been a successful pilot program and look forward to continuing it next year.
Judy, can I? Oh, great. Thanks. So it's a great pleasure to be here tonight and to recognize Monroe parents for their completion of the Latino Family Literacy Project. Before we recognize our parents, I want to take a moment just to thank a few people who without their support, this would not have been possible. So first of all, I'd like to thank Superintendent Cash and his district administration team, as well as our distinguished school board members for their continued efforts to promote and support parent engagement in all of our schools. I'd also like to thank Dr. Mora and Helen Rodriguez for their steadfast commitment to parent engagement and for their help bringing the Latino Family Literacy Project to our Monroe families. We couldn't have done it without you. Thank you also to Monroe teacher Judy Cosio for jumping at the chance, and I mean that, to continue to support our families and help facilitate this fantastic project. And thank you to Janina Martinez. You can see her enthusiasm is here. And Janina has been a fantastic supporter for our families, not just for the Latino Family Literacy Project, but in supporting all of our families throughout the year. For example, for us, for Familias Latinas, ELAC, and promoting resources for the district. She has brought so much enthusiasm, commitment, and positive energy. So thank you so much, Janina. Lastly, I want to say a big thank you to our parents, our wonderful parents who participated. Your completion of this project is a testament to your commitment to your children, our students, is greatly appreciated. On a personal note, I really enjoyed the time that we spent together sharing stories about life, food, family, and literacy. I learned a lot about you and more about myself, and I look forward to next year building on what you all have helped put in place for Monroe, so thank you. So at this time, I'd like to call up all of our Family Literacy Project parents. Come on up to the front stage here so we can recognize you. If you don't mind coming up to the steps here, come on up. And we also have a portfolio that we wanted to share with our board members, so you can take a look at some of the projects that we did. Thanks, Mary, for bringing that with you tonight. Okay, so we'd like to recognize Mary Jimenez. Mary, here you go. Awesome, Mary. Good job. Okay, good job. Berenice Medrano. Francisco Pacheco. Good job, Francisco. Thank you so much. Francisca Tomas. There you go, Francisco. Thank you so much. Berenice Llarenas. Good job, Berenice. Thank you. And Vianney Miranda. Good job, Vianney. Thank you so much. Excellent. Again, thank you very much, parents. Look forward to next year and continue this fantastic program. Thank you. On behalf of Monroe, go Mustangs.
Thank you. Now we move back to item 5, announcement of closed session action. We have one item to report in closed session action, student discipline and readmission for expelled students will come later in the agenda, but tonight's announcement of closed session action is a really important one. Would like to say that I'm very pleased to report that the board voted unanimously in closed session to appoint Kerry Matsuoka as a new superintendent of the Santa Barbara Unified School District effective July the 1st. The board also met with this negotiator in closed session to review draft employment agreement with the new superintendent. The agreement will be presented later in the agenda as action item G6, and we'll have copies for the public at that point in time. Also would like to take this moment, as Dr. David Cash was not available to attend this meeting tonight, to express some words on his behalf. Dr. Cash says, "I'm sorry that I cannot be there this evening to welcome our new district's new superintendent. Kerry will find a tremendously dedicated and talented workforce ready to do the work necessary to improve student learning, parent engagement, and staff professional learning. I look forward to helping as much as necessary in the transition during the next several weeks. Congratulations." So now I would like to take this opportunity to welcome Kerry and invite him to speak and introduce his family members who accompanied him here today.
This doesn't flex down. Well, good evening, everyone. It's amazing to be here. It's an honor to be here. What a full circle for me, as you'll hear in some of my comments. First of all, I want to thank the governing board for your expression of trust, for selecting me as your next superintendent. And I shared with them during the process, this is the most important decision that a board makes, is when they select a superintendent. There are many important decisions that you do, but this is the biggest. So I appreciate your confidence in me as your next superintendent. So to Dr. Paz, Ms. Idelson, Ms. Lamone, Ms. Heron, Mr. Heron, and Ms. Parker, I think you're somewhere on a beach, somewhere. I see you waving. I want to acknowledge the amount of work and thoughtfulness you put into the interview process. They asked a lot of hard questions, a lot of deep questions. I got to know them as community leaders, as champions for education, and we are of the same mind about what this community needs. You serve as trustees of Santa Barbara Unified, and that's a tall order. And you, in turn, have entrusted to me the leadership of this great district, and I thank you for that. So you have my commitment to lead with integrity, with wisdom, with patience and with tremendous hard work. This is not an easy job, but I look forward to serving as your next superintendent. Now, when you are elected as school board members, you have to take an oath of office. And I've delivered that oath to many elected board members. And I thought tonight, as a superintendent, I want to offer, in a sense, my commitments to you as a board, to you as a community. And here's what I swear to do as your superintendent. First of all, I commit to keep the interests of children as the most important thing in our work. Hands down, that has to be our top priority. Second, I commit to work collaboratively with you, the Board of Trustees, because we have a responsibility to be a team and to lead well. Third, any teachers out in the audience? Hey! So to our teachers, and you represent, 1,000, somewhat, of teachers in our district, I will value and support your work as teachers, and to support you through all the things that you need to do with our students today. To our classified staff, thank you for really running our district. You keep the place glued together. I appreciate your work, and I commit my efforts to help you do your job very well. And to all the leaders in our district, I commit to lead and to mentor you so that we are a leadership team that leads our schools well, that leads our district well. We have many parents, I could sense, in the room tonight, and I commit to honor our parents, to partner with you as you raise your children, because that's the most important part of life. And I commit to bring hope and joy to this great work. There's no better job than education. It's the most important work in our nation, and I hope that I do it with a smile every day. But it's Santa Barbara, how could you not? And I want to read an ACE statement. And it's a little longer because it's partly what drew me to Santa Barbara, and I heard it loud and clear from you as a board. I will be a champion for the underdog in our schools, in our community, for our immigrants, for our Latino students, and for families who have to work so hard to make it in this country. I will be present in their neighborhoods, in their schools, and I will give a voice to their needs and aspirations. I believe the equity work of public education is more important than ever. I mean, just think about where our country's at and what we need for our students, and really what we need for a democracy. I believe that we have to support every English language learner, every immigrant, everyone who has obstacles to overcome. This has become the most important part of my work as a superintendent, and it will have the highest priority as in my leadership. So thank you for listening to my commitments to you, to the governing board, to the community. It's great to be here as your next superintendent. At this point, I want to introduce some family members who are here. First, my wife, Polly. She's in the front row, and I'm going to ask her to stand. So we were having dinner before, and I mean, we're still amazed that this is now our new home. And I said, how did this happen? And she said, because it's you married me. And so here's the story behind this. Polly grew up in Santa Barbara. She's a graduate of Dos Pueblos High School.
Go Chargers!
Class of 1975. So you can figure out the math. Yes, we're getting on in years. Back then she was known as Polly Milliken because there were 5 Millikens who went through the Santa Barbara schools. So with her tonight are 2 of her sisters, Sandra Ekrit. Welcome, Sandra. Class of 1976, and Jane Milliken, class of 78. And then my brother-in-law, Daryl, I'm sorry, that's your son, Dwayne Ekrit. And Dwayne and Sandra have been residents in Goleta for, I think, 26 years. Their 2 children went through Dos Pueblos High School. If anybody remembers Valerie or Daryl Ekrit? I see a hand. And I'm sure they were great students. just by Valerie's a licensed professional engineer, mechanical engineering, and Daryl is on his way to his doctorate in neuroscience. So, thank you, Santa Barbara Unified. As you can tell, it's a family affair. I wish my father-in-law could be here, Roger Milliken. He's home recovering from an accident. He retired from UCSB as a chemistry professor. He served over 30 years at UCSB. So my roots through this family run deep in Santa Barbara. I've been visiting here, being part of this local community for 38 years. So the chance to come back as superintendent it's really full circle. Polly and I were married here back in 1980. So for us, it's really coming home. So I look forward to meeting everyone. I'm sure a lot of you would love to have a conversation with me. This afternoon, I got a chance to meet with the assistant superintendents. It was great to get started in our working relationship. I'll be coming down to meet with Dr. Cash June 27th. I'm sure he has lots to hand off to me. And we have much to, review together so that when he is retired and I take over, it's a smooth transition. Meanwhile, we're working hard at home, getting a home ready to sell. Not an easy task. And so we will be moving down very early in July. The house will take some time to sell. So to everyone in the audience, thank you for coming out tonight. I'm sure you were wondering, perhaps curious, like who's the next superintendent? I'm really thrilled to be here. It's an honor. It's with great humility that I accept this position tonight. So thank you for being here.
Yes,
Yeah,
Mr. Hunt.
For the benefit of the audience, could you give a little history of your 27 years teaching and superintendent positions?
Sure, I'd be glad to. This is wrapping up my 36th year in education. So I taught for 17 years, mostly high school. Taught at a place called Saratoga High up in the Bay Area. And interestingly enough, my biggest area I taught was chemistry. So part of the family tradition. Also taught AP Computer Science, which is a new subject back then, and then physics. After that, after teaching, which I loved, had these different management positions: high school assistant principal, district coordinator. I was principal at Cupertino High, so right in the shadow of Apple Computer, which today is almost gigantic. And then had the opportunity to go back to the district I taught in as superintendent of Los Gatos Saratoga High School District, and that's for 5 years. And I want to acknowledge a friend and colleague, Lori Gaskin, who's retiring as what's your title? President? Chancellor?
Superintendent President.
Superintendent President of Santa Barbara City College. We work 2 miles away from each other and just had some great times collaborating.
So happy for you.
Yeah.
So happy for this district.
Yeah, thank you, Lori. And then my last job, current job for 10 more days, is superintendent in Milpitas Unified, and I've been there for 5 years. Very interesting, diverse place, but all different ethnicities: Filipino, Vietnamese, Asian Indian, Chinese, Latino, and 6% white, which gives you a glimpse of how diverse that place is. I've learned a lot in every job. I would say the Milpitas experience has been very formative for coming to Santa Barbara.
Well, does Ms. Gaskin want to say anything?
No, I
Okay.
voted it out. I'm so thrilled that you're joining Santa Barbara Unified School District.
We need a mic.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We can let you work.
Come on, Lori.
Just come on.
Let me give her a hug again. Boy, you guys just grabbed onto a real gem and a jewel, and to showcase how much I believe in Kerry, I brought him in to provide some in-service, if you recall, to my faculty and staff, because he is so knowledgeable about all things as students transition into college going and the whole millennial experience. But beyond that, having the relationship between a superintendent of a local school district and a president is just an essential connection. education, and you've got the best, and I know it firsthand. So congratulations to the school district, and congratulations, Carrie.
I just want to invite those who are in attendance. We're going to take about a 15-minute break to get to know Carrie. So we're going to go out and kind of adjourn to the quad area right here to our side for about 15 minutes. We have some refreshments out there, so please take this opportunity. We'll come back at about 7:15. I'd like to call back to order the Santa Barbara Unified School District's Board of Education meeting for June 14th. We are going to move on to superintendent's report. Yes. Yeah. What we're going to do is actually we're going to move item H1. Wellness Committee update. We're going to put it under the superintendent's report, or after the superintendent's report.
Right after? So the superintendent's report. Before I report on the business of the district, I ask that we have a moment of silence in remembrance for our San Marcos High School student, 11th grader Sarah Titleman, and on the national level, the loss of 49 lives in the act of violence in Orlando, Florida. Thank you. Last week, enthusiasm ran high when approximately 1,636 high school students received their diplomas before friends and family. In the weeks ahead, we will complete preparation of a series of ads showing the many colleges and universities this year's graduates will be attending. The update on the Armory is Superintendent Cash is unable to be with us this evening, as he is in Sacramento regarding Assembly Bill 2247, an act relating to the armories. The bill passed out of the California Senate today and will go on to the Senate Appropriations Committee. From there, it will go to the Senate floor for a vote, hopefully before July 1st. There is unanimous support for the AB 2247. The bill would require the Director of General Services, with the approval of the Adjutant General, to grant the City of Santa Barbara or the Santa Barbara Unified School District an option to purchase the Santa Barbara Armory. And that concludes the superintendent's report.
Now we can do the Wellness Committee update. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Monica Scafidi. I'm a math teacher for Dos Pueblos High School and also your Wellness Council Chair. So Board President Paz, Board Member Idelson, Limon, Heron, and Parker, Mr. Turina, Ms. Waganet, and Ms. Jate. I'm proud to be here tonight to present to you what progress we've made with the Wellness Council. First off, I have a steering committee, very dedicated volunteers who help plan every single meeting and actually take on several action items regarding wellness. And those members are Paul Cronshaw from La Cuesta, Joni Merrill from San Marcos, Ms. Fran Waganek, Nancy Weiss from Food Services, and previously Janet Stevenson and Claude Mann from the Orfalea Foundation were members of the steering committee. We have a wellness policy assessment that we use twice a year, and it's a checklist of about 31 items, whether a school site is in compliance or not in compliance with those items. And so this past year, we changed it. Before, we had a yes or no answer, and it was difficult sometimes for schools to say yes or no because we're working on it, is basically what they would say. So we revised the assessment, so it's 3 columns now. Either no, we're not in compliance, but here's a target date. We're in process, and we're working the issue, or yes, the school is in complete compliance. So I gathered these assessments from mostly all of the school sites and added up and gave percentages on where we are. What percent are we in full compliance? What percent are we in process? And what percent are we not in compliance? So here's the results of that math. The first assessments I gathered were in January of this year, and I had 19 out of the 21 sites respond. The 2 that did not were the charter schools. And that number came up to 82.1%, listing items as complete compliance. We are doing what it says in the wellness policy. In May, 18 of the 21 sites reported, and we went up a little bit, about 84.3% complete compliance. So these numbers, being a math teacher, I like to hold fast to numbers, but sometimes it's difficult with this because you might have a different Wellness Council rep fill out the assessment in May versus January, and they may have a different opinion as to how thoroughly they are meeting a certain item in compliance. So what I wanted to do is just talk about a few of the things that did make those numbers go up. And so what's happening? What I've seen mostly at Franklin and Monroe, that they're working to get nutrition education integrated in more areas than just a health classroom. So in science, in math, in art. And as an example, at Monroe, they had a sunflower wellness project as part of their wellness day. And so kids studied the rate of growth of the sunflowers, as well as did some art with the sunflowers, and then planted sunflowers in their garden. So they're getting outside of just a health lesson to incorporate wellness and nutrition education in more areas. Also, at Roosevelt, I wanted to mention they are in complete compliance with classroom celebrations, so no more cupcakes are getting past the secretary's desk. San Marcos High School also had a wellness week. One of the things Joni Merrill does for San Marcos is she posts these little sticky notes that are positive affirmations, and she puts them all over the bathroom mirrors, all over the schools, and she finds kids taking them off the mirrors and giving them to each other, which is kind of like a little gift of wellness. So that's what just a few of the things that made those numbers increase toward complete compliance. So what was done this year? We met 3 times. In October, we had a presentation from Colleen Millian from OAS, Open Alternative School, and she presented about their Iron Kids Triathlon. And I think I notice on NEO, when I log in to enter grades or something, one of the pictures for the Iron Kids Triathlon is one of the pictures on NEO. Also, February meeting, Nancy Weiss and Janet Stevenson talked about the new catering menu that's available, and many schools are now using that to provide healthy snacks for their celebrations. In the April meeting, we had a mental wellness presentation. We celebrated Food Day in October, Wellness Day in March, and we submitted monthly e-news articles from the steering committee. We also generated a health and wellness one-pager, which will be going out, thank you, Fran, to all families with their registration packets in the fall. And lastly, we formed a subcommittee to address workplace wellness. The 3 meetings averaged 25 people attending, which I think is pretty good. And I just wanted to mention a few names of people that attended all 3 meetings. Caitlin Adair from Cleveland. Coco Butler is a parent from Open Alternative. She attended all 3 meetings. Paul Cronshaw from La Cuesta. Mr. Ed Herron, school board member, thank you, attended all 3 meetings, as did Deanna Marciano from Cleveland. Brian Pearson from Santa Barbara High, and Nancy Weiss from Food Services were the people that did attend all 3 meetings. I also wanted to commend several schools who listed themselves as in 100% compliance with the wellness policy. And those schools were Adams, Washington, La Cumbre, and the After School Expanded Learning Program. La Cuesta as well as in there. They have one more to do, and that was involving or providing activities for staff during the day. So what follows are just a few pictures showing you what kind of fun things are going on for Wellness Day and Food Day. This was Zumba at Goleta Valley. This was the food bank offered up some snacks at Dos Pueblos. At Open Alternative, they focus on little kids learning how to be well. And Goleta Valley had this other aspect of wellness, which is social wellness, so it incorporates a lot more than just eating well. And then here's Wellness Day at San Marcos High. The Marines came and they had a pull-up bar. They did a lot more than that, but that was just a good picture that I grabbed. A Wellness Day at Santa Barbara Charter. And then lastly, what we'd like to look at for next year. We'd like to really focus more on classroom parties and using food services more, their catering menu. And about 5 years ago, there was a video done by Rose Linehan, who was a steering committee member, and we'd like to redo that video. I actually advise a club at Dos Pueblos called the Good Food Club, and I'd like to recruit those students as well as students from the other food clubs to generate a new video and have the message come from the students rather than an adult. Secondly, we'd like to work on principal buy-in, talking again about food coming through the office to parties and having someone say, wait, here's the message we really want to give, and that is food that's brought into celebration should be healthy at the school site. Cupcakes are wonderful. Trust me, I was named Sugar Pig as a little kid. But only off-site, not on-site, not on the school site. Lastly, we'd like to update the policy regarding marketing to staff by local businesses, and I realize this is maybe a sensitive issue, so just want to start looking at that and see how we can incorporate those gifts in a well manner. And that concludes my presentation. Can I answer any questions?
Board, any questions, comments? Mr. Herron?
No comment, but Ms. Adelson and myself were on the committee, and I can tell you, it's one of the best run committees I'm involved with. Monica does a fantastic job, but two, it's well supported. The discussions, I mean, the room is packed, discussions are lively, everybody enters into it, and they all seem to totally enjoy what they're doing. So I want to thank you for this is what, how many years have you been in charge?
I think this is 5.
5, okay.
So thank you.
Yeah, very good job, thank you.
Thank you.
I also want to make a quick comment as well, is that I don't sit on the district's wellness committee, I sit on the county wellness committee along with Ms. Jate and Ms. Scafidi. So all three of us represent our school district, and I think it kind of shows the level of commitment we have as a school district to improving the wellness that we have across all of our schools, with staff, with students, and looking at innovation and trying to figure out ways to do better. And I would like to actually comment that I think we are doing a better job. My wife, who was a teacher as well at La Colina, commented to me that for their end of the year appreciation breakfast for the teachers, they used our school district's nutrition services, and I thought, like, finally, thank you. It was great. So I really appreciate it. I think that it's sinking in, and I think that's a testament to the work that you have done and everyone else who's been involved.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Ms. Lima.
So I want to say thank you, and I have a question. It sounds like the rooms are already packed, but if there is a school that doesn't have a representative, or if someone wants to join, is this something that they could be a part of?
Absolutely.
And how would they get more information, or who should they contact?
They can contact me, and we also are posting our meetings on the district website under committees. I think we have wellness listed. We had picked some tentative dates for next year's meetings, and I'll be working with Fran to solidify those dates before the summer's up.
Wonderful. And I do also want to say that, maybe us as a board, every once in a while we get food before, and maybe we should also check in with our food services to see if we transition that and also join in to the larger efforts.
I think so. I think we sort of talked about it informally. It's not a board decision, but yeah, we can definitely do that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. So that moves us to board comments and correspondence. Board any comments, correspondence? Mr. Herron?
I have a few interesting. I did go to the Franklin's ICANN last show. I mean, it was the last one of the last one, and once again, it was just beautiful artwork. I just hope we continue artwork and art shows in that same dedication. I went to the budget workshop put on by Capital Advisors, as did many from our district, and I won't say much about it because Meg probably understands it. In fact, she asked more questions in advance of the next topic than anybody in the room, so she knew where it was going. But I did come away with one thing. Are we as the governor describes it, are we the ants putting things away, or are we the grasshoppers, like everyone else, who just eats everything in sight? And I know where I stand, I know where Meg stands, I hope I know where the rest of the board stands. I'd like to see us be the ants putting things away. Obviously, all of us spent an enormous amount of time interviewing, discussing about who our next superintendent would be. And Ms. Parker and myself did made a road trip up north and talked to the members of the Milpitas School District. We talked to ELAC members, we talked to DELAC, the labor union president, we talked to Chamber of Commerce people, we talked to teachers, we talked to assistants, we talked to board members, well over 30 people in helping us make our final decision about Mr. One second. Matsuoka. And I've been practicing that for a couple of weeks, but I need to go back to school. But, you know, our trip north and all the interviews we had, we think we did, we got a real good person. And my one comment is, you know, he is going to need a microphone to speak. We haven't needed one in the past. There he is right there. He's a calm mentor, coach, done enough words to say about what we heard and what we did. So we just appreciated the warmness we received up there, and we're very satisfied. Obviously, this last week were graduations. I'll just mention I went to Glitta Valley, and it was fun. It was great. One young man walking across the stage shook my head and said, "Wow, you look like Bernie Sanders." And I said, "With my red hair, how could I?" And I look in the mirror and I see red hair, but nobody else does. And but that was fun. Went to Dos Pueblos for their graduation, and it was one of the best organized graduations I've seen from a staff standpoint and the kids' standpoint, and how they acted and went through the process. It was a joy. I guess the highlight for me was Adelante. I went to the 6th grade graduation, and part of what I said to the young people was, do you know how lucky you are, or how special you are? Out of 775 graduating from 6th grade in our district, you 21 are the only ones that are truly biliterate and bicultural. And the parents really appreciated that. It turns out 19 of the 21 families have been there since kindergarten, from K through 6. And I had to remind them that I felt like I was graduating with them, because I was there in K when it was Cesar Chavez, and I was there from 1 through 6. This is the first graduating class. Just doing I just felt so dedicated to that group of kids. And to see them there talking about how the Spanish has made it available, the one speaker, he can go to Mexico, talk to his grandparents, his aunts, his cousins in Spanish, and how valuable that experience was to him. So that was, to me, being asked to talk to those kids and their parents, and being there and seeing it in person, watching it for 7 years, is the highlight of my activities in the school district. So very thankful for Adelante and all that they've accomplished. And it's been a special 2 weeks since our last meeting.
Any other comments? Ms. Idelson?
To add to the special 2 weeks, or 150 anniversary for the Santa Barbara Unified School District was celebrated, and on behalf of the city of Santa Barbara, we received a certificate, but I noticed they misspelled school. So this one goes into the archive, truly. SCHOOOL.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. We'll have
One
to-
more, oh.
Yeah, so I'll read it. The City of Santa Barbara, on behalf of the Santa Barbara City Council, we thank you for your contribution to the enhancement of Santa Barbara's educational system and for creating opportunities for our youth to be productive. Education is the gateway to a brighter future for our children and our community. Santa Barbara Unified School District, 150th anniversary, June 6, 2016. And signed by Helene Schneider, Mayor.
Thank you. Ms. Limon.
So I hate to do this and end on a kind of a little bit of a sadder note, but in addition to all the amazing things that have happened the last 2 weeks, on Sunday night or evening, I attended the community vigil to take a moment to reflect on the tragedy that happened in Orlando. And it was well attended, but the moment that was probably the most difficult for me was when one of our high school seniors, who Miss Idelson and I had just shaken hands with this week at Santa Barbara High School at graduation, came up to me and asked me if this was our future. And our students are listening, they're watching, they are hearing what is happening in our world. And to believe that this is not impacting what we think of and what we work so hard to keep as a safe space in our schools is just not real. My instinct was to tell the student, no, this isn't your future, but the words didn't come out. They couldn't. I didn't know what to say to the student, and I just thought that Miss Idelson and I, days before, had given the student their little diploma plaque, had shaken the hands, had been there for all the pictures at Santa Barbara High School, and then there was this. So as we move forward and think about the year, starting the academic year again, I think that this regrettably is going to have to be part of the conversations, is what do we do as a school district, as a community, because our students know what's happening, and it's changing their reality. So I hate to end on a negative note, on a sad note, but I thought it was important to relay what this high school student had said to me. So,
Thank you. No other comments? We're going to move to public comments on non-agenda matters within the jurisdiction of the Board of Education. I believe we have like about 10 speakers. So I'm going to take the opportunity to shrink the time from 3 minutes to 2. We have 10 speakers, and we are at 20 minutes to 8 right now. So please limit your comments to 2 minutes. Ms. Idelson will give you a warning at 30 seconds of the 2 minutes, so at 1 minute and a half.
Okay.
So go ahead.
I'll read off the first 3, and if you can just come up and speak, and then the next person follow. Dr. Neil Berry, followed by Mary Aspinwall, followed by Andre Lewis. And you just step up, and then I'll give you a 30-second warning before the end.
I'll be brief, no problem.
Thank
Neil Barry, I'm here in opposition of the pilot program for the medical exemption. Issues of concern are patient privacy. Doctors and patients have special relationships, and the potential for information to be shared with those that legally are not bound to that information is there. When we start talking about projects like this, we have to realize those intended consequences and those that undoubtedly will be unintended. And when you start talking about patient privacy, health issues, family history, I think that trumps everything that potentially good could come from the project. Thank you.
Thank you.
Would you mind if I took the extra time? Is that okay?
I'm sorry, we don't.
Okay, that's fine. So I would like to oppose the medical exemption pilot program as well. What I have seen over the last few years since I've been in California is a kind of creeping towards what I would consider a kind of medical tyranny. So we have Senator Richard Pan, who's received more money than any other representative in California from the pharmaceutical industry. He so far has introduced AB 2109. At that point he said, don't worry, it's still going to be your choice as a parent as to whether you vaccinate or not. Then 2 years later, in fact less than 2 years later, he was back with SB 277 saying, now, no, you don't have a choice anymore. Either your children get vaccinated for 10 diseases or they can't have their constitutional right to an education. But he said, don't worry, because you can still have a medical exemption. And so if your child is in any way affected by vaccines or there's a family medical history of some problem, then you can go to your doctor and you can get a medical exemption. And he actually said, I went through everything today, he said, the Board of Health has absolutely no right to overturn the decision made between you and your doctor. But then, here we find ourselves just before July the 1st, when SB 277 comes into reality for this school district, and that's also changing. Now we have the medical exemption pilot program, which was introduced by Dr. Charity Dean, who is head of the health. Well, basically, I feel that it's unreasonable to have the health department come in, specifically when we were told that would not happen. It's none of their business. It's between the doctor and the patient.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Andrea Lewis. I'm a licensed acupuncturist. I'm also concerned about the medical exemption pilot program being implemented by the Santa Barbara County Public Health Department. First of all, the Santa Barbara County's letter recently sent out breaks the promises in sworn testimony by SB 277's authors, who vowed to allow doctors the final say in issuing medical exemptions. The letter also appears to violate the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, which states that parents and legal guardians are secured the right to have control over the disclosure of personally identifiable information from educational records. The stated purpose of the medical exemption pilot project is collect and analyze data. This violates the U.S. Department's Health and Human Services policy for protection of human research and violates their policy on informed consent. Informed consent is permission granted in the knowledge of possible consequences given by a doctor to a patient. This pilot program does not give a parent the opportunity for informed consent for vaccines, which are a medical procedure with serious risks. Severe reactions are possible and should be a serious consideration by physicians who know the history of a child and can interact with them on a regular basis.
30 seconds.
How can the health department know what is best for each individual child? How is the health department going to track all of this? What is the fiscal impact to the taxpayers? As a medical provider, I cannot understand why a select few are making medical decisions for thousands of children. Medical decisions and records should be kept in the hands of a child's doctors and parents. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next, we have Ann Odell Thomas, followed by Irene Koppel. Thank you. Followed by Ike Jenkins.
Dear members of the board, as of July 1st, 2016, the new mandatory vaccine law, SB 277, will remove kids their right to school education unless they're fully vaccinated. Only medical exemptions will be allowed. These are issued at the discretion of physicians after careful review of the patient and family medical history when it is determined that vaccines would cause a risk to the child's health. These are extremely difficult to obtain as few physicians are willing to issue them for fear of investigation or retaliation from the public health officials. Last week, the Santa Barbara County Public Health Department rolled out a medical exemption pilot program where they are, quote, directing all schools and child care centers to fax all medical exemption submitted for 2016-17 school year to the immunization program. The pilot program is nothing but a big brother type of program to control and attempt to undermine and challenge the professional judgment of a physician who determined that a child qualifies for a medical exemption. Further disturbing is that the local public health officer spearheading the pilot program, Dr. Charity Dean, openly gloats on her public Facebook page about having drinks with lobbyists in Sacramento. I have little faith the intention of this program is to ensure the compliance with SB 277. Everything points to this being a means to further intimidate physicians away from issuing medical exemptions and please those very same lobbyists who would be happy to completely remove all exemptions in the state of California.
30 seconds.
No matter how legal this pilot program is, This is a slippery slope towards total medical tyranny, where the professional judgment of physicians is challenged and the relationship with their patients seriously compromised. We have yet to see notification also sent out to all Santa Barbara County parents from the school district or the public health department. Why is that? I urge you to not comply with this pilot program and to request the public health department to stop it immediately. Thank you for your attention and consideration.
Thank you.
My name is Irene Coppell, and I never thought I'd live to see the medical tyranny that's now in California. And I thank God I've raised my child years ago, because I wouldn't put up with this. Despite the moral precepts of first do no harm, the sanctity of the doctor-patient relationship, parental rights, civil liberties, and by God, the Nuremberg Code itself, here we are. What's going on? What the heck is going on? The question needs to be asked, cui bono, who benefits? The fact that vaccines can cause harm is not unknown. In fact, it's been known for a long time. I certainly knew this 3 decades ago, and so did many others. I hope, so I'm not here to save my child. My child's grown. I'm here to save yours. I hope that many of you saw the movie Vaxxed when it recently played at the Riviera Theater. Del Bigtree, the producer, left his job as producer of the TV show The Doctors to produce this movie about the corruption of the CDC and the cover-up of the connection between the MMR vaccine and autism. He calls this the biggest story of our time, and Del is right. I spent a few hours putting up posters for that movie, and I spoke to a few people as I did so. I've talked to a lot of people who are vaccine injured, but I'm going to talk about just the few people I talked to those 2 days when I was putting up posters. These are your neighbors. They're here in Santa Barbara, and they could easily be any one of you. I met a man who has 2 friends with vaccine-injured children. One child, he describes a little girl who is a vegetable. I met a young man whose girlfriend developed paralysis on the entire right side of her face after a flu shot. I met a young girl who could barely talk to me through her anguish. She confided that she had been debilitated after the 2nd shot of Gardasil. I met a woman who works at a school for disabled children who told me that many parents blame their children's disabilities on the vaccines. And I met a woman with a very dramatic story about how her 2 children almost died from the DPT vaccine. Her story was very dramatic for many reasons.
Thank you. Your time is up.
Okay.
Good evening, I'm Ike Jenkins, hired for the district in 1960. Taught at Dos Pueblos many decades, La Cumbre Junior High School for a decade, Santa Barbara High School for another decade. I'm here mostly because I'm always concerned about the music programs in the district, and in particular I'm concerned about the direction we may be going now, and we may be putting ourselves in a box, meaning deciding that some things are more important than others. It seems that this kind of comes around, this subject comes around about every 5 or 6 years and causes a lot of concern with the teachers that you have and students and also the board. But we haven't solved it, is what I'm saying. One of the solutions that I would offer would be to study other successful districts and maybe individual schools and find out what programs they have that works, and then get an idea too. Santa Barbara is not that unique in that we can't form a plan that has succeeded in another district. I have a feeling that we're kind of binding ourselves with the numbers. I also would like to suggest that maybe that help that comes from a counselor could begin to help
30
those
seconds.
incoming students and incoming parents. Maybe we could revive that, maybe we could stimulate that program again. Mostly that's what I'm offering for tonight, is that we study it and come up with some solutions for our music programs in particular. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Next, we have James Moe, followed by Rich Lashu, followed by Moni DeWitt.
Good evening, members of the board, and aloha, Ms. Parker. My name is Jim Lee. I teach at Santa Barbara City College. I've been there for 20 years. I was a product of Dos Pueblos High School, Isaac Jenkins student, as a matter of fact. And I taught high school. I think that's my greatest achievement as an educator. I was teaching high school in Long Beach for 5 years. I absolutely loved it. I taught instrumental music there. And what was, I think, seminal in me being successful there was patience on the part of my administrators. I started out with an orchestra with 10 people in it, and those numbers don't usually fly, and I was told that I would have time to get those numbers up. And I was given that time. I was given a total of 4 years to make that program really sustainable. I just want to point out that you do have a brand new teacher at Santa Barbara High School who is fantastic. You have Karen Dutton at the junior high who is fantastic. I ask at this point, was that a bird coming from Hawaii? That's incredible. I ask at this point that you please give those teachers the same patience that my principal had the wisdom to give me to grow that program. By the time I left that school 5 years later, because I didn't want to raise a family in Long Beach, no offense, Santa Barbara wins. By the time, 30 seconds, by the time I left that program, my string orchestra was at 50 members. So that happened because of their patience. And I ask everybody here, please give the new teachers that time to get their programs together. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Rich Lashow at Santa Barbara Junior High, and I just want to thank you for your time and your listening ears. I'm here first and foremost to thank all those who stepped in throughout our community, but especially Dr. Dradi and Mr. Lito Garcia and this board for their interventions to keep Karen Dutton and her music program on the campus of Santa Barbara Junior High next year. Karen's hard work and dedication have created a flourishing program at our school despite daunting odds, and I want to take this time to appreciate all those who stepped in to ensure that continues next year. This district is at an intriguing crossroads. We've got shifting funding and a new superintendent in the works. There are myriad pieces on the board, and untangling the webs of possibility is a delicate process, to say the least. But I'm here to thank this board, Dr. Cash, and the administration for its commitment to the performing arts in recent years, with its collaboration with ICANN and folding the music and arts programs back under the elementary school umbrella, providing a VAPA coordinator in the person of Dr. Ronzoni, and continuing the process towards restoration in this district. As many of us know, the bond measure that supplements music, theater, and other electives expires after this school year. I encourage the members of this board and all other stakeholders to maintain our current trajectory on reinserting these priceless programs into our district and even increasing it where possible. Let's not fall into the trap of becoming so consumed by what's immediately in front of us that next summer comes and we don't know what to do about it. Finally, let us not forget, and ensure our new superintendent knows as well, that this is all part of a still longer restoration that's been in process for years. Financial constraints many years back cut junior high school electives from 7 periods a day to 6, and the electives took the hardest hits. Over time, momentum is being recovered in the elementary schools, and the high schools are doing the best they can with what they've got, but the middle school electives are a bottleneck competing with each other, and this benefits nobody. Reinstating a 7th period in our junior high schools is a complicated, expensive undertaking that's not going to happen today, and tomorrow doesn't look good either.
Time is up.
The electives are not optional.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Every child, every chance, every day.
I'm allowed to drop off a packet?
Yes, come on.
Sorry I didn't make a note, so I'll give them to the gals and maybe they can share. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi there. My name is Moni, and this is my first board meeting. First of all, I want to thank you all. You're obviously very committed, and we have a lot of good things going on in the district. But I'd come to talk to you today about to inform you of the district's use of confidential settlements in special ed cases, and that I feel that they undermine the foundation of the IEP. In January, after securing services for my son at an IEP extension meeting, we were surprised when the district sent a legal letter saying that we could get services that we agreed to only if we kept our rights to meaningful participation and kept the letter and agreement secret. When I inquired with the district, I was told that this was a routine boilerplate practice. I want to know how widespread the practice is of changing IEPs to secret settlement agreements, and I hope that there's just some misunderstanding, but I would definitely like to have clarification, and I prefer that IEP discussions stay within the protections of the IEP because that's what allows parents meaningful participation, and this doesn't. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. And last, we have Adela Barani. Okay, thank you.
I think that ends public comment. Thank you all speakers who came out to speak to the board. That moves us to acceptance of donations for June 14, 2016.
I make a motion to accept donations with gratitude.
There a second?
So moved.
Motion made by Ms. Idelson and seconded by Ms. Limo. And all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Ms. Parker from Hawaii. That moves us to the consent agenda. Board, are there any items that you would like to pull from the consent agenda?
Yes, I'd like to move an agenda item 20 under consent calendar. What is that? E20. I'd like to remove items 5 and 6 from the agenda for a later meeting. So it's item number 5 and 6 under item 20.
Okay. So we're pulling item 20.
No, we don't need to pull it. Just leave. If I make a motion, I'll just make the motion to not include items 5 and 6 that are included within 20. Not for later discussion, but for a later meeting.
Gotcha.
And I would like to pull, just to abstain, on item E17, which is the approval of human resource recommendations.
And I want to make a correction on item number 9. The instructions in the cover and on our agenda show May 24th, 2016 for the approval of the minutes, but the actual minutes being approved are March 8th and April 12th.
Is that correct, or is it the other way around, where we're approving item 9, May 24th? Can you hear me okay?
Can you repeat that?
On the minutes, are we approving May 24th, but the recommendation is to approve March and April? Just take a look at that again.
It's showing, oh, I see what you're saying. Okay.
So we just need to correct the recommendation on the agenda.
Right.
Yes.
So the recommendation is showing March 8th and April 12th as the minutes, but it's actually the May 24th that we're approving. Correct? Right.
Look at that.
Yeah, so just a correction to the agenda.
Okay. So I'd like to make the motion to approve as amended with Ms. Limon abstaining.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as recommended.
Are we?
Yeah, I'd like to amend that motion to include the elimination under E20 of items number 5 and 6 in that.
Correct. So we're going to act on the whole agenda minus the personnel recommendations, so Ms. Limon can vote.
With the amendment that Mr. Herron just said.
And the corrections to the minutes.
Correct.
Okay.
And the motion is made by Ms. Idelson. Do we have a second?
I will second that.
All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Now we can come back to the personnel list. Someone would like to make a motion to approve the personnel list.
I'll make a motion to approve the Human Resources recommendations for personnel.
Do we have a second? I'll make the second. Motion made by Ms. Idelson, seconded by Mr. Paz. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
With
Thank
one
you.
abstention.
With one abstention. This has been an unusual meeting this evening, let me tell you. It's taken a lot of work to be the chair this evening. Okay, so we are now at a public hearing. Our public hearing was supposed to take place at 7:15, but we are now starting at 8 o'clock. We're noting that. The first item, so we're going to close our regular meeting, open our public hearing, and the first item in our public hearing is discussion of local control accountability plan for 2016-17. Mr. Torino.
This goes to Dr. Bendrati.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, Deputy Board members, Dr. Paz. The district has formalized the final draft of the 2016-17 LCAP. Tonight is the final review before the June 28th approval. And in terms of the actual LCAP document, I wanted to let you know that the portion of the the actual expenditure portion of the annual update is still in the process of being finalized. So that part is an estimate at this point. But before the June 28th meeting, that will be we will have the actual numbers. But I wanted to let you know that ahead of time. And what you see before here is the document that you've seen before. So at this point right now, I'll leave it up for any questions you may have.
Board, do we have questions, comments? No one has questions and comments. Yes. I think at this point in time, you've incorporated pretty much everything that we've had as questions, comments, and mine have always been to do with the number of FTEs and reflecting those. So I think we're okay, unless we have any other questions or comments. Mr.
I'll make
Herman?
my typical comment. 130 pages to talk about spending $9 million. It's ludicrous, but it's fine print. Good luck reading it.
Yeah.
We can thank the state of California for that. Yes.
We are next year really we're going to work hard at developing an executive summary, so that it'll be much easier to explain to the community. I think we all agree that the document we have right now is difficult to go through.
Yeah. So maybe we need someone in the state legislator who knows a little bit about education.
I will say, I know that I've shared a document that we have that, another school district put together that is very user-friendly, that is more of kind of a summary video, not summary picture, like it's just great. So because I think text-heavy just gets text-heavy, so I hope that we also look at what other districts have done to make sure that the public can really understand what's going into it, and also remind the public that this is a small percentage that we have flexibility for, as opposed to our larger budget. But I think this is the summary that
it's not even 10% of our budget.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Just put it on public record. Any comments from anybody about the reduction of ninth grade class size reduction?
I haven't heard anything yet.
Because that's a decrease of...
Ms. Parker from Hawaii.
Oh, I did actually, thank you for letting me have the mic, and I don't know if the mic is picking me up,
Yes.
but I did finally get some feedback around it, and there were parents that expressed some concerns with the understanding of why it was happening. So I did want to share that, in fact, after a number of attempts to get public feedback on it, I did get a little bit, but it was a concern about our large class sizes in general.
It's like you're here, Miss Parker. That sounds good. You cut off. No other comments or questions. If not, we can move to item number 2, the public hearing of the Santa Barbara Unified School District 2016-2017 fiscal year proposed budget and components of ending fund balance.
Thank you.
Ms. Mekjete?
Thank you, board members. So tonight, the second part of this is we also have to have a public hearing on the draft of the overall budget for 16-17. And part of that requirement is to show the components of ending fund balance for 16-17. And I have given a description of what each one of those buckets of the components of ending fund balance mean and how they're derived. And you've seen that before. It's the same as what we did last year. But I wanted to go over the actual numbers in the page 3 and wondered if you had any questions as I go along. Just feel free to stop me. So, first I want to say that when you saw the second interim, it did not have the settlement agreement in it. And what we did is, obviously, we thought that was enough to make an adjustment to our second interim. So what you're seeing here is the estimated actual. So we've revised the second interim budget. And we've included the 4% and its related statutories. So we have also gone through the budget and asked each department and the sites, is there anything that you've encumbered in your budget that you will not use, and let's unencumber it. Let's get as close as we can to the actual, what we're estimating to be our beginning fund balance for 16-17 and our ending fund balance in 15-16. So we have estimated that our projected ending fund balance for 15-16 is $10.5 million. Of that $10.5 million, we have mandated one-time funds, and I have to laugh because we call it one-time funds, but we've gotten it like 3 years in a row. But this is really supposedly one of the last years we'll get mandated funds. We will get another amount in 16-17. So we're expecting to have $5.5 million of ending fund balance and mandated one-time funds. We also then would have a reserve of economic uncertainties of 4.5, which is adequate for our 3% for 15-16, and this is just the general fund. And then we have a small amount undesignated in ending fund balance. Also, we have in our special reserve fund, we have $4.8 million. $800,000 of that is to the fields. The $59,000 is for the carts and trucks that we put away for every year. We're pretty up to date on our trucks and our carts. We've been really good in the past 4 or 5 years keeping everybody up in our maintenance department with adequate trucks. We've gotten rid of a lot of old ones. So we feel confident we're not going to go into that money over the next 2 years. And then we have the funds to be spent at board discretion of $4 million. Let's go to 16-17. We start off with the estimated ending fund balance for 15-16 of $10.5 million. We're projected to operate in a deficit of $2 million, which brings us down to $8.4 million. With the increase of the one-time mandated funds, we get about, I think it's $3.1 million next year in 16-17 for mandated funds. And so we assign that, so it leaves us with an ending fund balance of $2.1 million in our reserve in the general fund. Again, we are making a deposit or a contribution over to the Fund 17 of $1.1 million, one of that being out of the mandated money. The million, and then we have $900,000 for our field replacements, and again, we're just leaving the $59,000 in there for our trucks and carts, and then we have $5 million at the board discretion, $5 million. So I'm here to answer any questions you have. Attached also is a draft of the budget. There have been a few changes both in 15-16 and 15-16 and 16-17 that we just made today, so it will look a little different on the 28th, but it's pretty close.
Board, any questions, comments? Ms. Limon?
Thank you, Ms. Chate. So I want to go back to something that you just said. We have 4 to 5 million for board discretion. What does that really mean?
Well, if you go back to your components of ending fund balance and you look into 1617 on the reserve for economic uncertainties in the general fund, you have $2 million. Our reserve amount should be about 4.6 in the general fund, but what we need to do is, it's not that we take the money and use it for our reserve, but we account for it using our reserve. So Fund 17 is like our savings account. So when you join the general fund in the savings account, you get your 4% above your 3% reserve. The state recommended 3%.
Okay. I guess one of the big things that I've discovered in this particular budget year is my interest in the process and how decisions are going to get made, how they're going to get communicated. I know that, well, I actually don't know if other board members, but I know I've heard, I've gotten a lot of feedback too, just from some of the changes that are happening and impacts on sites, not just around music, but in other areas as well. And so my question was also thinking about, well, what kind of process or not will the board be a part of to have some discussions in the future about some of the changes that we're seeing and what kind of potential impact, and is there a way to mitigate impact in some cases? So,
well, I think the board has every right to know what the decisions are and how we got to those decisions. I know we've talked a lot about the reductions for 16-17, and you've asked to talk about the reductions in 16-17, and I have to tell you that most of the reductions in 16-17 are through attrition. We have gone through our contracted services and looked at them and said, well, do we really, have these proven to be worth the money? And we decided as a cabinet, when we had the discussion, that they were relatively small and they didn't really affect the students directly. So those were like easy cuts. For example, Alliant, they're our insurance broker. That has no impact on students at all. But we thought, we don't need an insurance broker anymore, and they're $90,000 a year. So we did reduce that, and then HR wanted to bring them back in a smaller amount, and that was all part of their own budget. We didn't give them additional money to have that. But they felt they needed a smaller portion of that $90,000. So we did things like that. There were also some positions that were vacant that we just didn't fill. And those are if you want to know which ones, there's one in ETS, there's 3 in facilities, there is 1 in business services.
And I guess it's good to have a discussion about it. I think that there's others at sites that include not filling positions, that include definitely changes to programs, how site funds are managed. And I think that that's just part of the bigger discussion, that at least some of the feedback that I've been getting as a board member. And so I think it's not simply how the cuts were made and the lack of understanding on why the cuts or changes, I guess maybe cut's not the right word, changes needed to be made, but it's also what are they, and some of them I feel have been more obvious and others have not, and really it's taken folks at sites to kind of mention, hey, did you know that this is working differently this year, and so those are some of the things that I feel like I missed in the first round of looking at numbers. So I want to acknowledge that sites are also experiencing a change in how they fund their site, and I think that that's important to recognize.
And I agree with you, and we did have lengthy conversations with every one of our principals about this, that this was going to be the year that their sites could be reduced. But one thing that I want to be clear about is some of the things that you saw on that list for the supplemental were taken off the plates of the sites, but are being provided through the district through the supplemental grant. So even though they didn't have the money, they're going to still have the service. And I don't know if Dr. Ramirez or Dr. Drotti would like to add anything to that, but there were several issues like that also.
Yes. So in part, this also had to do, we mentioned in a previous board meeting, there's some findings that came by way of our federal program review, and those were specific to federal dollars that were allocated, that have traditionally been allocated to the sites in Title I, Title III specifically. But it also had to do with some onboarding of new programs, such as our internal visual arts program at the elementary, which percentage of that funding went to ensure staffing for those positions, and will ensure that we have a viable program in 2016-17. So if the board would like more clarity on those items and how that came to be, we could certainly provide that.
I just want clarification. I know that one of the board members asked for the federal review outcome and report. I'm just curious, did anybody get that?
I didn't get it, no.
No.
Okay.
We might want to get a copy of that at a future meeting.
Absolutely.
Mr. Herron.
I'll just point it out, 9 pages to spend $250 million versus 130 pages to spend 9. It just somehow strikes me as being a little bit weird. I understand it, though. We'll get a bigger one in a couple weeks, probably. But I'm curious, this looks like a much rosier picture than we heard when we had the AB 1200 report a month or so ago. I mean, have things changed that dramatically that we now have excess funds versus there we were going to be in a deficit for the next 3 years, practically? I mean, even this is a deficit, but it's nowhere near the deficit we were in.
So the AB 1200 was $6.7 million worth of cuts. In 16-17, we made 3.8. In 17-18, you will see or have a discussion about what's in the 17-18 school year. So, and those are additional cuts. So, as I said, that we have reduced the budget as much as we could in 15-16 to our best of our knowledge. Therefore, it lightened up the ending fund balance, or it beefed up the ending fund balance. But the second interim didn't have the 4% in it. But I understand what you're saying, that, and it was also, we had a difference in what we expected the governor's budget to be a little bit, not much of a change. But I still think that the $6.7 million needs to be cut. We have to do that to make the third year out, 18-19. And you'll see that more in our multi-year projections. Remember, this is only 16-17. We haven't gone out to 17-18 and 18-19 yet.
In the letter we got from SBCEO, they wanted to be sure that the 16-17 adopted budget include the expenditure reductions that are necessary to maintain the reserve of 3%. Did you interpret that to mean that it'll just be in the budget, we don't need to see what they are? Or did you interpret that to mean that they want to see the actual line items where the cuts are made?
I have a list ready to go to make sure that they know that those cuts are in this budget. And when I give more of an explanation on the 28th, you will see every place that they came out of.
Okay, that's my question. I was curious on this. It looks like travel is cut in half.
That's correct.
Who monitors that? Who governs that? Who makes it?
We reduced the budget by 50%.
Well, it's one thing to reduce the budget. I've seen many cases where we overspend a budget. I mean, who makes the actual decision to say yes or no on a travel expense? That's
by department. So, for example, we're cutting our budget by 50%. I told my managers that they had to, take Munis, the first, that comes right off the bat, right off the top, the Munis conference that they go to every year. And then if there's no more money, no one goes. And the thing is, you can't, through Munis, you cannot put in any you can't hit against money that's not there. Now, in salaries, they always, it has to let it go through. But in items in the supplies, services, capital outlay, you can't exceed that without an override. So that would mean somebody's got to come in. So Mitch will say, hey, I want to send some people to this conference. I have money in my settlement account, but I want to put it in my travel and conference. And so we take it out of our settlements and put it into our travel, his travel and conference. And that's how they can move the money around. But overall, it's not going to
I built a house once, and and every time I spent $1, oh, you can't spend it there, you're over budget. Okay, take it out of this. Got down to the end of the project, had no money left for landscaping.
Yeah.
It's a curious way to do it. Another question, books and reference materials jumped 194%, 247, no, excuse me, 247 to 727. Why the big increase in books and materials?
What page are you on?
Page 7, under materials and, no, let's see. Approved textbook, no, that's not it
I'm
either.
not,
Books and other reference materials.
are
Under
you?
Books and supplies,
Okay.
up 194%.
Oh, okay, so, oh, okay.
Perhaps I can shed some light on that. Remember, we went through, we contracted with Equal Opportunity Schools, and in that process, we expanded our AP offerings because we identified, I don't have the exact figure, but hundreds of students that are now taking AP courses, which we wanted.
Yes.
But that meant we needed to purchase textbooks and onboard, and that's where a lot of the costs went.
I thought we'd stop buying textbooks, but that's good to know.
Hold on, Ms. Inwan. Ms. Parker's been waiting.
I just have a clarification about that
Sure.
comment. So, sorry, Ms. Parker, I just have a quick clarification. And when you talk about the textbooks, are you talking about ebooks or are you talking about regular books? Because we've also had a discussion about the role
Yes.
that ebooks, so you're talking about ebooks.
Yeah, so we haven't established that we're gonna utilize ebooks as a textbook option because we haven't established that we're going to use iPads or some kind of computer system for that. What I'm talking about here is immediate needs that we have to have right now in order for our students to receive instruction materials in those AP classes that they're taking.
So I should expect that it would be a traditional regular book
Yes.
and not an iPad
At
that says this is the book.
At this point, you should expect it to be a traditional textbook.
Thank you.
Ms. Parker, thank you for waiting.
Thank you. Ms. Jate, I just have a question about the relationship between the mandated reserve for economic uncertainties and the Special Reserve Fund 17. And that is, we have, as the board very deliberately, essentially increased our reserve for economic uncertainties with Fund 17. The idea of us having more like a 10% total reserve, along the lines of Mr. Herron talking about us being more like ants and grasshoppers. And so, as we save for that winter, but what I'm seeing here is that, when you come forward with the actual budget at the next meeting, is it possible? I mean, you can't leave that number at essentially 2.1 million, 2,082,844, can you? I mean, don't you have to, for the county and the state, bump that up to the actual 3% and thus deplete Fund 17? Do you need to make that transfer before we actually approve the budget?
No. It's our savings account, and they look at it as one. The general fund and Fund 17 both represent a 3%. So as long as that Fund 17 has the money in it, which we don't have to move over, we meet our reserve.
But what you could say, however, is that the overall total is reducing down from that 10% that we hoped for pretty dramatically.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Herron.
Yeah, where did the $1 million that is moving into 17 come from? We haven't done that before.
Mandated.
Mandated million?
Mandated one-time money. We got $7 million in 15-16 of mandated money,
Oh, so
of which
it was
we
mandated money, it wasn't mandated that we do it.
No, it was that one-time money
Yes.
that we've gotten 3 times.
Okay, so that was just a decision to move it in there.
Yes.
And who made that decision?
our superintendent.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments, board? That was a really good discussion. Thank you.
Thank you.
If not, we're going to close the public hearing and come back to our regular agenda. That moves us to item G1 on the action agenda, board action petition for readmission of expelled student, case number 2015-16-20.
I will move we grant the petition for readmission of an expelled student, Education Code 48918, case number 2015-16-20.
I'll second it.
Motion made by Mr. Herron, seconded by Ms. Idelson. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Moves us to item number 2, board action on student discipline, Education Code 48918, case number 2015-16-37.
In case number 2015-16-37, I move to approve the administrative hearing panel recommendations for expulsion with enforcement suspended for 1 school year, which ends January 2017.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Limon, seconded by Mr. Herron. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Moves us to item number 4, board action on student discipline, Education Code 48918, case number 2015-16-41.
Dash 41, or?
38, excuse me, I
sorry.
skipped one.
In case number 2015-16-38, I move to approve the stipulated agreement for a full expulsion, 1 school year, which ends January 2017.
I'll second it.
Motion made by Ms. Limon, seconded by Ms. Idelson. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Board action on student discipline.
Aye.
Thank you. Board action on student discipline, Education Code 48918, case number 2015-16-41.
In case number 2015-16-41, I move to approve the administrative hearing panel recommendations for an expulsion with enforcement suspended 1 school year, which ends January 2017.
I'll second it.
Motion made by Ms. Limon, seconded by Ms. Idelson. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Thank
Trying to
you.
be quieter now.
Board action on student discipline, Education Code 48918, case number 2015-16-42.
In case number 2015-16-42, I move to approve the administrative hearing panel recommendations for full expulsion, 1 school year, which ends January 2017.
I'll second it.
Motion made by Ms. Limon, seconded by Ms. Idelson. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Thank you all. That moves us to item number G6, approval of employment agreement for the new superintendent. So now we take up Mr. Matsuoka's employment agreement. Copies of the agreement are now placed in the back of the room by Mr. Herron. So if anyone in the public would like to have a copy of his employment agreement, it's available. And I'm going to take a moment to summarize some of the highlights of our new superintendent's contract. The agreement provides for a 3-year term and an annual salary the same as Dr. Cash in the amount of $260,164 plus benefits. Health, dental, and vision insurance are the same as that received by other certificated management employees, and additionally included relocation expenses and like Dr. Cash, life insurance coverage and a 403B retirement plan contribution. Excuse me. The superintendent will be evaluated annually. That's it, in sum. Do we have a motion?
So move the approval of the appointment of Mr. Matsuoka as our new superintendent.
I'll second.
Employment agreement.
Motion made by Mr. Herron, seconded by Ms. Idelson. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 It is now official. Thank you so much. You're welcome to stay. If not, you're welcome to go home and celebrate with your wife. All right, thank you.
No, I want him here for the bond discussion.
That moves us to item number 7, approval of resolution number 2015-16-37 of the Board of Education of the Santa Barbara Unified School District, School Facilities Improvement District Number 1, ordering an election and establishing specifications of the election order. Mr. Day?
Thank you. So resolution number 2015-16-37 calls for an election with the district for the purpose of approving general obligation bonds and requests that Santa Barbara County Register of Voters conduct the election on behalf of the district and authorizes the preparation of the election materials, including ballot arguments and tax rate statements, to be included in the ballot paper, pamphlet. As you know, since we are a unified district with feeder schools, we're a Thompson unification, we had to establish a school facilities improvement district, which is really the elementary district, but it is an SFID, a school facility improvement district. You have seen the language before, and I believe Mr. Herron and Ms. Parker reviewed the language and made their changes, and our attorney revised the documents, and so I'm here to have a discussion about that. But what, if any, one thing I want to point out, though, is this election will be called under the constitutional and statutory provisions requiring a 55% vote. We need 4 out of the 5 board members to vote, not 3 out of the 5, which was previously stated in your packets. So I'm here to ask for if any questions or a passing of the resolution.
Yes, Ms. Parker and I did meet, and I have to preface it with the changes that we are recommended that are displayed in these documents were not on the advice of our bond counsel. They very clearly said they would recommend we not make any changes. And I won't tell you why they said that, but I can tell you, you probably know why they said that. We made some changes in both documents in the elementary, mainly around the libraries. We felt at the last meeting, since new libraries were not on the project list, that making the impression that we were going to replace libraries just didn't set well. So you notice on the very first resolution, if you go down to the second paragraph on the first back to the resolution itself. In the second paragraph, 4th line, it says maintaining adequate libraries. It used to say 2 weeks ago, providing adequate libraries. So we toned it down to, we do have libraries that are not efficient. We have 4 schools that have poor libraries. But the intent was not to rebuild new libraries. We know the cost of that. But to maintain adequate libraries gives us the benefit of working on libraries if they really need it. So that was the main idea there. And then if you turn to the actual ballot language, you'll notice in here, first I'll point out, we say attract, retain quality teachers. That's the same that was in it 2 weeks ago. In the discussions, there was a feeling that rather than that language, we should change it to support local students and leave the quality teacher aspect out of it. Kate and I talked about it and decided we'd leave that up to you, but we left in attract and retain quality teachers. But that could easily be changed to support local students. You'll also note in there that we added, after classrooms, deteriorating classrooms, 3rd line, libraries, repair, replace, deteriorating classrooms, libraries. We added that from 2 weeks ago. And then, since we say in the 2nd line, repairing, replacing classrooms, in the 4th line, it says science labs. And it used to say science labs repairing, acquiring, constructing. We took repairing out of that sentence. It was a duplication of the word in the second paragraph. So those were the changes in the actual ballot language that we made. We added libraries, took out repairing, left in attract, retain quality teachers to see if you still thought maybe that should say support local students instead of attract, retain quality teachers.
Ms. Simon.
Can anybody tell me, is this it exactly, what is it?
It's very close to 75 words.
It's very close to 75
I don't know,
words.
I don't know the legality of how you count different words, but like Santa Barbara Unified School District, I think might be one word.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
it is.
It's hard to count.
Okay, so it's
It's 75.
75 then.
This is written by our council.
I, for one, would like to, I like the idea of making it student-centered, and would probably vote to, say that again, local students?
Support local students.
Yes, to put elementary support local students. I think that making it student-centered is aligned. I mean, if I could, I'd keep teachers and, classified staff and the whole works, but we don't have enough words. But I think I, for one, would prefer the supporting local students.
I also feel likewise. I think mentioning the students as the top priority is, in my mind, what we're about.
Kate?
Ms. Parker?
I'm completely in favor of that. I think that would work well. I can absolutely support that.
Okay. If we can make that change, do we have
I would just
any
say,
comments?
council says we shouldn't do that, but I'll leave it at that.
All right.
Why does it end in a question mark? Is that just because
That's a question.
that's a question?
It's shall we do it?
Shall we?
Oh, got it, okay.
Yeah. Any other comments, questions? If not, can we have a motion to approve?
Well, I've got some more things to talk about.
Okay. Go ahead.
Remember that one, okay. If you go to the next page, Exhibit B, you'll notice in the very top, the fourth line after lead paint, we used to have, and 2 weeks ago, providing adequate libraries. It was taken out of that language like we did in the previous language. And if we do make that change, we'd have to make it here too regarding support local students. And then if you go to the project list, again, you'll see item I, or 1, we changed provide to maintain. It used to say provide. Okay. And then just on B2, improvement list, go to B, improve student, yeah, that's it. Again, the fourth bullet point, maintain, used to say provide. And then, just to point out, there was a question about stabilizing the hillside at McKinley. If you scroll down to what they call the graveyard, about 8 lines up, it does say stabilize hillside for safety. And so, again, the bond council said that's where it should be. We should not bring it up to a higher status under the, one of the bullet points above. So he said it's there, and that should be sufficient. And that's the changes we made in elementary. And so if we do change to support local students, it will be made in 2 places.
Okay.
So is it required that I have to bring this back on the 28th, or if I make the changes and get your signatures, we can take it to the county?
We can direct you as staff to make those
Okay.
changes, and we could approve based on those changes. Someone want to make the motion?
I'll make the motion for the approval of resolution number 2015/16-37 for the School Facilities Improvement District Number 1, ordering for an election and establishing specifications of the election order.
May I add with modifications noted by Mr. Herron?
With modifications noted by Mr. Herron.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it, but under discussion, I'd like to read a statement that covers both issues before we vote. Just keep, and I bear with you, and I just have the feeling that we've had so many discussions, and we've had so much input from so many people, that anybody years from now looking back would have maybe a hard time finding out exactly how all of it fits together. So with your approval, I'd just like to read this, and sort of sets, from my standpoint, when somebody looks at this tape 5 years from now, they'll see my thinking and maybe that of the rest of you. Some of the assumptions that I made when we were talking about all these resolutions is that the secondary bond issue is based upon priority list number 2, dated 5/18/16, for $135 million, and for the priority list dated 5/3/2016 for the elementary, $58 million. Project costs for these priority lists are simply based on the opinion of the LPA study created for the district as a master plan dated June 2015. This plan was received by the board, but not endorsed or adopted. It is obvious to me that until the entire planning process is completed with detailed approved building plans on each school site and the bidding process, there is no way to determine the actual total cost for each individual project. It will be expected that any future governing board will make professional and well-educated choices in the accomplishments of these and any related projects, and the expenditure of any bond funds will be watched over by the Community and a Citizens Oversight Committee. Bond sale parameters at the time of this actions are based on the recommendation of our financial consultant, Joanna Bowles, of KNN Public Finance. We heard additional thoughts during the discussion regarding various other considerations regarding timing, amounts, and future interest rates, but I felt the conservative assumptions outlined in 2 memos to Dr. Cash and Meg Jate dated May 20th, 16, and well, there were 2 of them dated May 20th, which included 3 scenarios, and recommending scenario 3 by KNN was the best approach at this moment. It is also my understanding that the recommendation is for 3 bond sales, recommended amounts in 2017, 19, and 21. These are to be current interest bonds, and this is definitely my feeling of the intent of the current governing board as I see it. Property tax rates are estimated to be $13.15 per $100,000 assessed valuation in elementary district and $11.50 per $100,000 of assessed valuation in secondary district. Obviously, these can change based on a lot of parameters. Having said this, I know from previous experience many of these factors do and will change over the next 7 to 8 years. Future governing boards will need to make potentially different and necessary changes to this process for reasons unknown to us at this time, but will need to make them in accordance to the parameters laid out by the bond documents presented to the voters and in the best interest of the district and the voters. I have total faith that any future governing board will act in accordance with the best interests of the districts and communities on these important matters. Regarding the Armory property, and that will come in the next discussion. Since I have joined the governing board in 2008, the purchase of this property has been discussed at numerous sessions and has been focused and discussed now for decades. Prior to my joining the board, the city and the school district entered into an agreement with a community organization to pursue negotiations to purchase it, and the city authorized $25,000 to help the effort. This effort failed due to some extreme demands by the National Guard and the Armory Committee, which I was a member of with the city, dissolved. We now have a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to make the purchase, but need to be able to act within a very short period of time. It is fair to say that the $20 million allocated for its possible purchase and construction is an arbitrary but educated guess. But there is no other choice. There is absolutely no possible way to have any concrete plan or exact use of the property anytime soon. But I do feel that owning it would be our best interest of our secondary sites and in the community's interest. As we move forward, the community will have ample opportunity to determine exactly what use will be in the best interest of the education of our youth and the community. Thank you for letting me put that on record.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we had a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Thank you. That moves us to item number 8, approval of resolution number 2015-16-38 of the Board of Education of the Santa Barbara Unified School District ordering an election and establishing specifications of the election order. Mr. Torino.
Mr. Tay.
So this resolution is for the secondary district, which is known as the Santa Barbara Unified School District. So pretty much the same thing goes with this one, and I'm sure that Mr. Herron and Mrs. Parker have some changes to this resolution also?
Yes, not as many, but a little different twist. If you turn to the Exhibit A, which is the bond language, I'll point out the changes in this one. Third line down, it says updating technology. It used to say updating classroom technology. And
Wasn't Ms. Parker.
It was not.
updating, so now it just says updating technology. And then if you go down to the next line where it says safe drinking water, repairing, constructing, acquiring classrooms, it used to have it said and acquiring classrooms. We left out the and. But then after classrooms, it used to say in 3 words with facility/sites/equipment. Because of the armory, we thought putting it together with those 3 words, we would rather see it spelled out separately as sites. We didn't say armory, we said sites. Classrooms, sites, facilities, equipment. That at least it stands on its own and isn't lumped in with the other 3, just for full disclosure. So those were the changes on that document. Now, if you go to Exhibit B, you notice in this one, under project list, item number 2 is attract and retain quality teachers. It's not in the bond language itself. I mean, it's not in the ballot measure itself, but it is there, and we didn't make any comment on that. We left it alone. You may think about that. If you go now to the next page of B2, the 4th bullet point says repair deteriorating libraries. It used to say 2 weeks ago, repair and replace libraries. And it used to say and repair, replace other school buildings. We deleted the and replace, and we deleted the repair and replace. So now it just says repair the deteriorating libraries and other school buildings and construct safe modern school facilities. Then you'll notice, again, against bond consultant's approval, we put in at the very bottom, acquire the National Guard Armory facility for educational purposes, including career technical education. That used to be in what they call the graveyard, which I'll show in the next page, but we moved it from the graveyard up to make it more clear to what we plan on doing. And so then if you turn to the next page, you'll see about 10 lines down, well, you won't see it because it's not there anymore. But after acquire land and facilities, it used to say acquisition of the National Guard Armory facility for educational purposes. We just took it out of here and moved it to the actual list of projects. I think that covers our changes.
Thank you, Mr. Aaron.
Any other questions, comments, board? Do we have a motion?
I'll move approval of the, I don't have it in front of me, it's the actual wording.
Approval of resolution number 2015-16-38.
The Board of Education of the Santa Barbara Unified School District ordering an election and establishing specifications of the election order.
I'll second.
Motion made by Mr. Herron, seconded by Ms. Idelson. All those in favor?
I think we probably should ask Ms. Parker, did I miss anything?
No, that was perfect, Ed.
Thank you.
Okay. Motion is second. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Thank you.
Thank you.
So now if it doesn't pass, you can blame Kate and myself for changing the language of our bond consultants.
It's all him.
We'll be knocking on your door pretty soon. We are moving to item number 9, approval of agreement for acquisition of public right-of-way for public, purposes for sidewalk modifications at Santa Barbara Junior High School. Mr. Torino.
And this goes to David Hetya. Mr. Hetya.
Thank you, Mr. Torino, Dr. Paz, board members. The city of Santa Barbara is currently updating the street on Quarantina by Santa Barbara Junior High School. They are replacing the sidewalk and the roadway with permeable pavers. That's the section of street that has tree roots, has the natural speed bumps, very hard to transverse, and also it's affecting the sidewalk and the path of travel that our students take to and from school. In order to make this project work, the city is asking for an easement for 2 feet of our property. Currently, the sidewalk ends at the property line, and then there's about 3 feet of weeds, grass, whatever, before our fence. Our fence is not on our property line. The city is asking to take 2 feet of that approximately 3 feet area and use it for sidewalk purposes, which will help save the trees on that street. It's a benefit to both the city and the district, and we're recommending approval. And I also have with us here tonight Laura Yanez from the city. If you have any specific questions about the project, she'd be more than happy to come up and answer those.
Board, do you have any questions, comments? I noticed that the city, if I'm not mistaken, maybe Ms. Inez could address this, that the city's been working on that side, across the street from the junior high, sort of along the I would say that.
Correct.
Yes, is that correct?
Yes, we want to maintain. You got a good one.
Yeah, they won't start working on our side until the board authorizes this.
Yeah, so maybe that would help us to kind of understand it. Maybe the public could help the public understand what exactly you all are doing.
Hi, I'm Laura Yanez, project engineer with the city of Santa Barbara. So we have to maintain, or are trying to maintain, an accessible path of travel throughout the construction of the project. So since the west sidewalk of the street was very uplifted by roots and the least accessible path, we decided to construct that side first, and it was also further from the school, so the students can still go and use the east side of the street, the sidewalks, during construction. So that is why we're working on the other side. And now that school's out, we'll be able to do the east side as well as the roadway.
So you mentioned, Mr. Hetyoung, that these would be pavers. Will they be like pieces so that the roots will get the water through the sidewalk?
Yes, they're permeable pavers, so they'll allow water infiltration, and it's also aggregate below the pavers, so that'll allow air before, we believe that the tree roots uplift because condensation below the asphalt or concrete would retain, would cause the tree roots to go up and look for that water.
I see.
So now that water will go down and keep the roots below.
So next, will you do Anapamu after this?
And this is why we're doing it. It's a demonstration project that, if successful, may be able to be applied at Anapamu Street.
I was wondering about that because it's just kind of a similar situation.
We're all watching these
This
trees
is
struggle.
It's a good street because it's low volume, low speeds, not that many utilities in the roadway. So Anapamu has a lot more traffic. Definitely take more things into consideration.
So this would be a benefit not only to our students, but possibly for the city as a whole.
Correct. And the parents that have to drop off the students, and it was just a hazard overall.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Board, any other comments, questions? Ms. Parker in Hawaii? No? Thank you so much for being here. Yes.
I'll make a motion to, let's see, it's on 2 pages, approve the agreement for acquisition of public right-of-way for public purposes for sidewalk modifications at Santa Barbara Junior High School.
I will second that.
Motion made by Ms. Simonson and seconded by Ms. Limon. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Moves us to item number 10, approval of consulting agreement with Alliant Insurance Services. Mr. Turina.
Thank you, President Paz. For this consulting agreement we have with Alliant Insurance, it's due to the Federal Affordable Care Act that requires large employers to provide significant documentation to our employees about medical insurance plans, and Human Resources currently lacks the staff to compile and format this documentation. The scope of this agreement attaches limited to compliance and technical assistance specific to our benefits enrollment time. The recommendation is that the board approve the consulting agreement with Alliant Insurance Services, and Ms. Jate actually spoke to this earlier, that we actually reallocated certain of our budget to this because it's such a high need to get the information out and comply with federal regulations and laws.
Board, any questions, comments? If not, can we get a motion?
I move to approve the consulting agreement with Alliant Insurance Services.
I'll second it.
Motion made by Ms. Limon, seconded by Ms. Idelson. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moves us to item number 11, approval of Title III Limited English Proficient LEP Annual Plan and Budget Update. Mr. Trina.
This is Dr. Mora.
Good evening, Dr. Paz, members of the board, cabinet, and guests. This is the annual update of our Title III LEA plan and budget. The overarching purpose of Part A of Title III is to ensure the limited English proficient LEP students, also identified as English learners here in California, including migrant children and youth, attain English proficiency and meet the same challenging academic content and achievement standards that other students are expected to meet. Districts must use Title III funds to implement language instruction, educational programs designed to help English learner students achieve high standards. The use of Title III funds is limited to providing English learners appropriate language programs and services so they can attain English proficiency based on the California English Language Development Test, also known as CELT, and meet academic standards. Identified in our plan on pages 7 and 8 is the expenditures and activities that we will be pursuing. Our plan identifies a continuation of strategies identified previously, with the focus on the development and implementation of integrated ELD across our district. This focus of providing professional learning opportunities to our teachers on language acquisition strategies strengthens the educational programs for our students and provides them the opportunity to more readily access the curriculum and make meaning of new content. On page 9 of our budget, you will also note that we were able to identify the estimated allocation based on the total number of EL students. So the estimated allocation is $295,885. That is based on our CalPADS data of October of this past year. So we had at that point 3,481 EL students, which is a reduction from the previous year because we've reclassified last year. We reclassified over 1,000 students, and this year we also had roughly about 600 students that were eligible for reclassification, and those numbers we're still finalizing the actual count. But that has also had an implication on the budget allocation for us, for our Title III plan. You will also see on page 9 that we have identified an estimated carryover that will actually allow us to be able to implement this plan of action. So this is carryover that we have for this current school year. And this is an estimate. So if you look at the expenditures noted on the plan, you'll see that there's still a surplus. But because that carryover is an estimate, I preferred not to allocate those funds in case it is less than 144. So that's why the difference will be present when you go through and calculate the numbers. So that's what our plan is about.
Thank you very much. Ms. Idelson saw that. I was like, wait, the math is, okay, thank you.
That's why, because if you look at the carryover, it's an estimate. We're still working with Meg Jate on on finalizing all those numbers, so I don't want us to be in a negative.
You answered my question.
Okay. So at this point, if there's any questions, please, I open it up to all of you.
Board, any questions, comments? I have one sort of question or comment. So as we move more students and reclassify more students, we're going to hit a ceiling, so to speak, in terms of funding. And maybe a ceiling that's somewhat it's good,
Yes,
no question
it is.
about it, but maybe there's the ceiling I'm referring to is the number of students who, there's going to be a numbers game here where we're going to have a number of students and then an amount of money that is intended to help them transition. Are we going to get to a point in time where that number, the fiscal number, the budget number, sort of is not workable? How are we going to deal with that?
You know,
If you understand my question.
let me see if let me rephrase it. So as we continue to reclassify our students, the number of EL students is going to reduce, right? So therefore, we're going to see a reduction in our budget.
Yeah.
Yes, that is true, and that's what we hope to see. However, our plan of action really looks at building the internal capacity of our teachers and developing a sustainable plan, so regardless of whether or not our budget decreases, we have built a team that can continue to deliver these type of professional learning opportunities to our teachers to build that capacity. So we are looking in the future to see when our numbers do become less and less, how are we planning now so that we can still provide a high level of service to our English learners? And that requires that we have a sustainability model within any plan or any plan that we develop in order to support our students.
Perfect, thank you. Mr. Tate.
I just have one thing to say, too, that remember the supplementals there to help the English language learners also. But it's a double-edged sword there, too. If you have an EL student and they are not SED, then they will drop off our unduplicated pupil count, which means we have less supplemental. So, but there is help in the supplemental bucket, the almost $10 million worth of money in there for the EL students for when they are redesignated, that they do have help on that side.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, we have to approve the plan and the budget update.
So I'd move to approval of Title III Limited English Proficient Annual Plan and Budget Update.
I'll second that.
Motion made by Ms. Idelson, seconded by Ms. Limon. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Moves us to item number 12, second reading approval of Administrative Regulation 4161.2, 4261.2, 4361.2, personal leaves. Mr. Trina.
Thank you, President Paz. This was brought back for a second reading to include a sentence in regards to the staff who feel put upon by administrators to try to create some type of lesson plan before they leave on an emergent, have personal leave. And so to that is the third paragraph, the sentence that is added, and as to not cause added or undue stress on the employee in regards to creating those lesson plans prior to them leaving for personal leave. And any questions?
Any questions?
I just
Ms.
have
Limon.
a quick question. Did we get any additional feedback about this particular policy?
No.
No? Okay, thanks.
Perfect.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the second reading of Administrative Regulation 4161.2, 4261.2, and 4361.2, personal leaves.
I'll second that.
Motion made by Ms. Idelson, seconded by Ms. Limon. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. It moves us to item number 13, second reading and approval of Board Policy and Administrative Regulation 6173, Education for Homeless Children.
Fran, Ms. Paganick.
Thank you. We're bringing this back for a second reading, also for the addition of a sentence that was requested in regards to reviewing with homeless students who move mid-semester. They're to receive counseling regarding the transfer of their coursework and credits. We have added a sentence on page 6. Thank you, Mr. Rouse. Okay. This is not the right piece. There we go. We've added a sentence that says, if a homeless student believes that they are entitled to additional transfer credits beyond those awarded by the school site, an appeal may be made to the superintendent or their designee, who will review all records and make a decision within 10 school days. So any questions on that addition?
Board questions, comments? Do we have a motion for this?
I'll make a motion for this approval of the Board Policy Administrative Regulation 6173, Educational for Homeless Children.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Idelson, second by Mr. Herron. All those in favor, please say aye. 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 Thank you. That moves us to the conference agenda. I know that Ms.
And
Park...
if I can jump in here and
Yes.
say mahalo for accommodating me from Hawaii and aloha. I will leave you to the conference agenda. Until next time, guys. Thank you.
Bye, thank you.
Aloha. Bye.
Bye. I know Ms. Idelson, Ms. Parker sent me something on H3, so I'll read what she put down when we get to that item. We are now at item number H2, since we already took care of item H1 in the Wellness Committee update earlier on. So the first reading of Board Policy 5111.1, District Residency. Mr. Trina.
Dr. Paz, just in respect to time, we will be okay if we pulled H2 item and have it discussed at our next board meeting.
That is fine with us. Ms. Luma.
Are there any immediate implications to pulling it? This is a new policy, so I'm just, and we've gotten emails about this before, so I'm just, yeah.
No, thank you very much for asking, Ms. Limon. So long as we're able to cover this in the next meeting, we won't be doing any investigation of residencies prior to July 1st. So the next meeting will be fine, but we will need to cover it at the next meeting.
And I also want to make sure that we give it time, because it is a new policy and it may have implications, so I'd rather not rush it and is it going to come back in conference or in action, so that we can have 2 spaces for public to hear about it, to have a recorded message. Sorry, it's just a new policy.
I'm happy to take 5 minutes to...
Me too. Okay. Sorry.
Okay.
Okay.
It's just that we've, over the 6 years, this has come up, and what we do, what we don't do, and I'd rather it have on a conference and action, so that the public knows that we've thoroughly discussed this.
All right. Let us take up H2.
So, Dr. Paz and the board, I bring to you the first reading of Board Policy 5111.1, District Residency, and specifically, this addresses the way in which we conduct investigations on students' residency, and really to adopt policy that is in line with CSBA and current California state law. Specifically, in terms of residency, it lays out practices that may and may not be used, such as the taking of photographs unless out in the open, being clear and honest with who the investigator is if asked by a family who's being investigated. So at this point, I know you've had time to take a bit of a look at it. Do you have any questions?
Any questions, board? Ms. Limon?
I don't have questions. I hope the public is listening or watching, and it's a tough time because school is out, none of our parent groups are meeting, but I guess on the one hand, I want to do our due diligence. On the other, I don't want any group whatsoever to feel targeted, whether it's a group based on a school or a group based on a last name, and so it'd be great if people were watching and knowing that this is coming forward.
I would agree with you. I think it's one of those things that's really important that we spread the word, so to speak, and let people understand that this is our policy, and that this is something that people should be aware of, because I have heard people, even parents in the news, kind of allude to, well, if I did the following. Yes.
If I could comment on
Yes.
that, I think, our policy is here, and it lays out for us the ethics of what we do. And I think in terms of everyday practice, it goes down to the sentence, if you can go down to below investigation of residency there, Mr. Rouse, second paragraph, the superintendent or designee may assign a trained district employee to conduct the investigation. That would be the assistant superintendent of student services, and the investigation may include, and this is really what we do, examination of the records, looking into the information. My office receives, we have neighbors who give us information and want us to look into it. And so I think with all the things we have to do in our district in terms of the social, emotional, and physical safety of our students and so forth, while it's important to do this, we don't want to be chasing our tails, following every lead that's given. But really it is about looking into it and working with the schools, really talking to the principals, knowing the families, talking with families, and it's just part of the parent outreach that we do in general. So that being said, I think this just lays out for families really the ethics behind how we conduct ourselves.
Great. Any other questions, comments, board? Thank you. Moves us to item H3, first reading of Board Policy Administrative Regulation 6174, Education for English Learners. Mr. Turina.
This is Dr. Morrow once again.
Well, she's coming up as the last one coming back on conference or action next time. The one we just talked about, residency.
Can we bring it back on action?
Action, okay.
Yes. Thank you.
Good evening. So this is the first reading of the updated board policy and administrative regulation 6174, Education for English Learners. So our BP 6174 is being updated to reflect requirements to address goals and specific actions for English language learners in the district's LCAP, establish an English Learner Parent Advisory Committee to consult on LCAP development when applicable, and measure progress towards district goals for English learners. The policy also provides updated information about the status of state standards for English language development, instructional materials, adoption, and state assessments of English language proficiency. It also adds language on professional development required for districts receiving federal Title III funds and reflects new law, SB 1174, 2014, which, contingent upon voter approval in November 2016 statewide general election, would authorize parents, guardians to select a language acquisition program that best suits their child. AR 6174 is updated to delete definitions of long-term English learners and at risk of becoming a long-term English learner, as the assessment on which these definitions are based are in transition. So the state is currently piloting the new assessment that will replace the CELT. The regulation also adds a section on the LCAP, English Learner Parent Advisory Committee, updates information on the state assessment of English language proficiency, revises the testing window, and adds notification required for districts that receive Title III funds. These updates also include the removal of the publisher from the local assessment while maintaining our current performance scores to determine proficiency. And it also identifies that the use of the KC as an alternative measure will be used through 2017. As you know, the KC is no longer administered, but we have students that currently still have scores, so that is still an option for our secondary students. So I was able to meet with our reclassification committee throughout the year to get input from parents, from teachers, and from principals in relationship to the changes in respect to our local assessment. And this also, for us, it's also very important for us to keep in mind that as the state finalizes their own criteria, then this will come up again in the future for us to review and discuss again. So it is recommended that the board review the BP and the AR 6174 and provide any feedbacks in regards to moving forward to a second meeting.
Board questions, comments? ahead.
So is this, are these changes aligned with what CSBA is yes? Thank
Yes.
you. I guess there was so much emphasis and work put into the state defining long-term English language learners that it's almost like, oh my gosh, wow, it's being deleted now. And we just put it in a couple years ago. Okay, thank you.
Of course.
Ms. Parker provided me some comments. What she states is that both the board policy on page 2 and the AR on page 5 refer to a certain passing score in the KC as an exit identifier for high school age English learners. The AR states that that would only be used through 2017, but since the CASI is already defunct and no longer being administered, I think the board policy would be better with a little clarification too. My suggestions would be to add administered prior to 2016 at the end of the last paragraph on page 2 after the word assessment.
Okay, we can definitely add that.
Okay. Any other comments, questions? If not, you can bring it back for action the next board meeting. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
That brings us to item H4 on the conference agenda, and it's discussion of educator effectiveness grant plan proposal. Mr. Traina.
Thank you, President Paz. Over the past year, the Educational Services Group, both elementary and secondary, have been formulating a plan to use the monies from the Education Finance Bill SB 77, Section 58, which is allocated $2.8 million in a block grant for professional learning in the Santa Barbara Unified School District. What we're doing tonight is, if you look at the actual memo part, Mr. Ross, thank you, is number 2, we are trying to develop and adopt a plan delineating how those funds are allocated, and then we're also having this plan currently be explained in a public meeting before its adoption. And I think what we want to really focus on is that there are 3 goals. There's provide support for beginning teachers and administrators, doing basically what the county has been doing for us before. Goal 2 is providing coaching and support for teacher and administrator improvement. And then the last goal is professional development for teachers and administrators that is aligned to the state content standards. And so I would ask that you give us input on how this plan is looking so we can actually start to look at accessing and spending those funds for this grant.
Board questions, comments? Mr. Moore.
So I see that Educational Services has kind of put this together. I'm just curious, how'd you all decide this? Like, was it just cabinet decide this? Was there other feedback? Did it go through anything? I'm just curious.
Well, part of this is specifically how the grant is written, that these are the things that we have to do to access and be able to use those funds. So that's the first step. If Dr. Ramirez or Dr. Durrani would like to comment on the other pieces, goal 2 and 3, about how we really want to support our teachers and provide the information and training that they need to move forward with a lot of our CCSS.
Sure. Sure. In terms of some of these components were actually described to you the last time that we talked about a draft model for the literacy and language framework for the district. So some components are reflected there as well, and that was derived largely from teacher surveys around professional learning that we also shared with you, and we've gathered more data and more information from teachers over even the last couple of weeks, more informally. We'll continue to develop that over the next several months. Just to give you an example, around the literacy, the Writing Institute that we're hosting here in August, we're now up to 31 participants in grades 2-3, and 21 in TK1. So there is a lot of strong support for certain components of this. The development of the instructional leadership teams is something we've discussed specifically with our administrators, knowing that we have negotiated also with with SBTA recently to develop a real robust site leadership component involving teacher representation.
Thank you. Thank you, that was helpful.
I have a question. How are we going to go about looking at how well we did in terms of our goals and meeting those goals?
Well, you're talking about goals relative, are you referring to goals relative to this particular plan?
Well, this plan, we have goals, and there are 3 goals that you've set forth.
Sure.
And so as we roll this out within the next year, how we're going to look at this at the end of each. First of all, how long are we talking about? Remind me, is the 2.8 million 1 year?
This is going to be, it's actually a 3-year plan,
3 years.
but beginning in 15-16.
So every year, we're going to have these 3 goals. We're going to look at them. After each year, well, my question is that after each year, how are we going to look at whether we met the goals, were effective in meeting those goals or not?
So the way that this particular plan is drafted, it's not necessarily crafted in terms of goals. They're really more measured actions, or they're more indicators of actions. So for example, a teacher induction program, that's a necessity in order for us to ensure that teachers have opportunities to clear their preliminary credentials. So we can certainly look at the number of participants. We can look at identifying some survey metrics perhaps over the course of time that would allow us to get a sense of what kind of satisfaction and opportunities there have been. With the other components, we'll have to definitely look a little more into how those can be crafted into goals, because right now they are more developed in terms of actions, and actions that we feel will be reflected in student achievement. So we have student achievement indicators that we've expressed to you and explained to you in other, or put forth in terms of our assessment continuum. So we're hoping that ultimately that's where they really begin to show results. I can tell you that our preliminary data around the lower grades is looking very positive in terms of literacy, but over the coming years, we'll have to see if those metrics hold. And so we would have to really think through how we craft this in terms of making it more measurable.
Because one of the questions I would have in terms of looking at this, especially when you look at, I look at it in terms of quality, right? The quality of the work that we're doing to achieve these pieces, like what's on the screen right now, development of this instructional leadership teams, and the first part of that says on-site coaching. Well, was the coaching to the quality that people expected? Because ultimately, if that quality is not there, you're not going to reach that. People are going to ignore it. And that's really what I'm asking, is that at the end of the day, we still have to have some level of measurement to look at the quality. It's kind of the pieces that I've said before, is that when you look at anything or measuring of any program, you count, you look at quality, and you look at, did we make a difference? Quality, the making a difference presupposes you have quality. If you have no quality, there's no point in doing it. It's any program, any evidence-based program presupposes that you have quality. If quality does not exist, then the last part's not going to happen, which is the outcome. So that's my question, really kind of getting at that point. If we're looking at that, if we're thinking about that at this point in time, and how that's going to roll out.
I think at one of the meetings, Dr. Ramirez presented to you the balanced literacy framework that we want to engage in. I think from that activity, we can actually inform you about some process data we can look at.
Yeah.
I think when we also talk about the leadership team development with our instructional leaders, we can, when we come present that to you, we can definitely add some process data to show you how we're going to monitor the progress of that.
It would be good to come back to this as a document, and then, attach it as, branches off a tree, and start saying, here are the pieces that we were looking at, and this is why we're looking at those pieces. So that would be really helpful for us as a board to kind of look at this.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Could I add one thing also?
Sure.
And that is that, and I know this because I did BITSA when it was called BITSA from the beginning. One of the main goals of the teacher induction program, and one of the main reasons the state mandated it, was to keep teachers in the profession. So that's another metric I think we can look at, is how successful are we keeping our new teachers in our district.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's all I'm asking, is that you look at all those possible things that you could come up with, and look at the things that matter most to teachers and matter most to you all, that'd be great. Any other questions, comments, board?
Just
Mr.
on
Hare.
the budget portion, can you go back to the budget portion? Okay, so that two-year total is $1,000,001. Does it then, the third-year total add up to the rest of the grant, I guess?
No.
No?
So it's 1.1 million, and then on the, we wanted to show that the third year out, it's on us. There's no more grant money. However, if we didn't have this program and we had to send the teachers to the county, it's still cheaper for us to do it than it is to the county. So we did that math and said, yes, we can do it for this. And okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Board, any other questions, comments? This is coming back to us at some point or another for approval?
Yes, it will come back. Consent?
Yes. Thank you. That moves us to item J. We don't have any other consent items for discussion. We took care of those before, so any coming events, board?
I'd like to mention on Saturday, June 25th, there's a Stay Strong Barbecue, live and music, at the Dos Pueblos High School in honor of Jose Soletas in his ALS fight. He's our longtime translator and a wonderful guy.
Thank you. Future agenda items? Mr. Hare.
I would I guess I'd like a discussion item on the future agenda on a program called PGSSSM. Are anybody familiar with that here? PGSSSM. I know you are, but I'd like to have just a report on it and hear about it.
Okay. Ms. Lima.
Not for an agenda item, but I would like something, actually perhaps in the formal board brief, on the medical exemption pilot project program for Santa Barbara County. I feel like I know what the law did, but I don't know what this, I don't know a lot about this particular pilot program.
Yes, so I can provide that.
Great, thank you.
Perfect. Any other items? No other items. We are at adjournment.
I'd like to point for the record after we're closed that this is longer than normal, Carrie.
The next meeting for the board is Tuesday, June 28, 2016, here at 6:30. The following meeting is July 12, 2016, here at the District Administrative Office, 6:30. And that's it. Thank you all.